Welcome. My name is Abby Kelso, and as facilitator, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this afternoon's meeting. We know that many people have busy schedules, and by closely following the agenda, we will end this meeting before 3 o'clock. After the introduction of our panel, Becca Tilson and Ann Kozel will take 5 minutes to give the opening statements of the meeting. We will then hear testimonies from 4 student workers about how the current pay schedule affects their lives. Next, Steve Hughes will present the union's proposal for the implementation of a twice-a-month pay schedule. The administration will then be allotted 8 minutes to respond to USW's proposal. The panel of students will then take 5 minutes to reply to the administrator's concerns. And finally, we will allow time for the administration and the workers to agree upon an appropriate plan of action. While President Jane Jervis and Vice President of Finance and Administration Ruta Flanning could not attend, we have 4 representatives of the administration here. 5, actually. Nancy Mckinney, Special Assistant to the Vice President of Finance and Administration. Art Constantino, Vice President of Student Affairs. Wade Davis, the Controller. Laura Grabhorn, Head of Student Employment and Financial Aid. And Laura Grabhorn, Financial Aid Counselor. Jesse Welch, Dean of Enrollment Services. To represent the student workers, we have Becca Tilson, Ann Kozel, Steve Hughes, Evelyn O'Connor, and Mitch Shannon. To begin the important business of this meeting, I now turn it over to Becca and Ann to give the opening statements.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This room is filled with students, student workers, and supporters who share a vested interest in coming together as a community to address issues of work here on the Evergreen State College campus. In addressing these issues in an organized manner, it is our hope that we can work together to improve the conditions under which we work. And by improving those conditions, we will be bettering our experience in our jobs, in our academics, and in our community.
In the spirit of collaboration, we took the liberty to transcribe a statement that hangs on the wall behind the administrators. It is borrowed from the office of Art Constantino, our Vice President of Student Affairs. It states that we as students are not an interruption of their work, but the purpose of it. It is in this vein that we gather here today to finally set forth a plan of action that will bring twice monthly paychecks to all student workers as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
We would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we, as a union of student workers, seek to address many issues of work on campus, which include increasing wages as the minimum wage is increased, exploring ways to enable students to work more than 19 hours per week, and most importantly, official recognition for the Union of Student Workers as a bargaining unit for the student workers on this campus, so that we may be a sustainable organization that exists as a resource, an advocate, and network of communication among student workers. At this time, however, we are focusing on twice-a-month paychecks because it is a hardship to many and is a change that we all deserve for the essential work that we do.
Last year, in the December 11th issue of the CPJ, an administrator wrote a letter entitled Misconceptions about Student Employment. In this letter, it was stated that, quote, student positions do not fulfill essential functions of the college. This means that student jobs are supplemental but not critical to the function of the college, unquote. Contrary to this statement, student workers who fill this room are part of a strong community of workers that have as much collective strength and importance as the faculty, staff, and students of this college. The Union of Student Workers has always maintained that without a student labor, this school would cease to function. We feel that therefore we are entitled to be paid on the same schedule as all employees of this school. For the administration to deny us this money we have earned reveals an attitude that student workers are second-class employees. Not only are we, with the exception of a few temp employees, the only employees of the Evergreen State College that only get paid once a month, but we are also the only four-year college in the state of Washington that still pays their students so infrequently.
We would like to illuminate the particular hardship of the beginning of the year when students have to wait 6 weeks before receiving their first paycheck, 6 weeks before seeing a cent of money they have earned. This comes at a time when we must pay rent, deposits on housing, tuition, and books. We have heard administrators maintain that student workers have financial aid packages, therefore they have ways of sustaining themselves. It is true that many student workers do have financial aid, yet packages do not cover more than tuition and basic housing needs. In addition, many of us, including myself, have routinely found that loan checks have not been available during the first crucial month of school. This makes it extremely difficult to get through the first month and a half unless we have substantial savings.
Despite the fact that we feel it is unacceptable to expect student workers to accumulate an ever-increasing amount of debt to educate themselves, there is a myth that anyone can go to school who is willing to go into enough debt. The reality of the first unpaid 6 weeks of the year breaks down this myth that school is accessible to everyone. In this way, Evergreen does not live up to their goal of a diverse student body along economic class lines. Whereas we want to highlight this time of year, we want to state clearly that this problem is not contained in the first 6 weeks. Therefore, this change to this pay schedule needs to be instituted permanently and immediately.
We understand that administrators are interested in a disappearing task force that would research the bi-monthly paycheck issue along with other student employment issues that would not necessarily be of immediate concern or importance. We know that a DTF will take up to 6 months to reach a conclusion and that the conclusion may have no official power to enact this change. The union's research committee is made up of full-time students who are also student workers. They have been working diligently all quarter, doing the work that a DTF could have taken months to do. All of the administrators have received a copy of our proposal outlining an efficient and cost-effective way that we can institute this change. We would like to receive our first bi-monthly paycheck at the beginning of spring quarter of this academic year. We realize that this deadline will mean immediate decisions and action, and therefore hope this meeting will yield such results.
In the past year, representatives of the union have met with administrators before and brought hundreds of signatures on petitions, union cards, and written statements. Apparently, administrators still contend that this is a problem for only few, or that student loans should cover our needs. We have come here today to demonstrate for once and for all 2 main points. 1, that this is a hardship that does affect many student workers, and 2, that hardship or not, we all deserve the respect to be paid in a timely manner, and that means twice a month. We have come here today to say it is now time for us to make this change.
The next item on the agenda is to hear from some student workers to give testimonies on how the current pay schedule affects their lives. First, we will hear from Lemur Thompson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name's Lemur, and I'm a senior here at Evergreen. And I'll be graduating this spring if I can get 16 credits of upper division science each quarter, which is in my plan and I intend to do. I came across the problem at the beginning of this year, though, because I was working but not getting paid for 40 days from the beginning of the quarter. I had to get along as much as I can. I've been in the workforce. I've been working and paying my own way for 9 years now, since I was 19 years old, and supporting myself. I had to borrow money off friends this quarter to get by, paying rent bills, credit bills, things like that. My books were not purchased till late into the quarter because I did not have a paycheck, and because my money had to go towards the money that I could borrow, had to go towards the immediate bills and rent. And I did finally get my books and had some severe catching up to do. Still doing some catching up by the end of November. This Thanksgiving break, this week of Thanksgiving break, I will have my work all caught up and be in time with the rest of the class. Because I did not get my paycheck, a paycheck until 40 days into the quarter, I was not able to purchase books, and that is why I support twice monthly paychecks. Thank you.
Now we have Vanessa to tell another story.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm graduating in June. This is the first year that I have worked on campus. I worked off campus before and got paid twice a month. It was really hard this month because of that 6 weeks where I didn't get paid. My rent bounced, and so I had that, the check return charge and all of that, which was even a bigger waste of money. But that's about what happened to me.
And finally, we will hear from Erica Sweet.
Hi, I'm Erica. In the beginning of September, I moved here with my 2-year-old to start Evergreen as a transfer student in my junior year. We settled in and I started working at the library archives on the first day of the quarter. Didn't get a paycheck until November 13th, like everyone else. I count out every dollar, but I can't use money I don't have. Bills have dates on them, and all of mine were paid late, including my rent. It's important for students, especially single moms like me, to keep a good credit rating, and that is nearly impossible for me now that all of my bills are a month behind. If I'd have received half of my November 13th check on November 1st, my bills wouldn't have been late. Having a 2-year-old means that there is always the chance for an emergency. My stress levels skyrocketed waiting for my first paycheck. That is why I need twice a month paychecks.
All right. To address the concerns of student workers, the Union of Student Workers has drawn up a proposal which most people should have near them. Steve Hughes will now take 5 minutes to present the union's proposal to implement a twice-a-month paycheck.
Thanks, Abby. Union of Student Workers has been working very diligently, as Abby said, on this proposal. There's been a lot of work that's gone into it, and we feel, first of all, that we're months ahead of time with what we could be if this proposal wasn't here. It's a sound proposal, in my opinion, right now. I'll say that, and with no further ado, I'll jump right into it. Okay, so the first thing that the research committee of the Union of Student Workers did was we went to payroll and we asked them what obstacles existed to prevent us from getting twice-a-month paychecks. And if you look at the proposal in part 1, you'll see there are 4 main things. The first being there was a lack of space for filing the hard copies of all the records that they have to keep. The second is that the time for filing the hard copy records would be too much, having to do it twice a month. The time of entering the data into the computers would be too much, and that the time spent verifying errant pay slips would be too much. So with that in mind, we set about putting together proposals and working with them, and we worked up this following proposal. We feel that, well, actually, let's just move along. Thank you. So what can we do to deal with this problem? Well, the union is suggesting that we institute a new office at the school called the Student Employment Office. What this would do was, and I'll talk about that in a second, what it'll do physically for this problem, but it will also help address some of the other issues on this campus that revolve around student employment that aren't necessarily the financial ones that we're talking about today. So, all right. This is a diagram of the old system that we have right now. When a student worker goes to a workstation asking for a job, the workstation then fills out the establishment paperwork, which is the STAF form, the Student Temporary Action Form. That form then shoots on over to financial aid. They verify if the information is correct on the STAF. If it's not, it's sent back. If it is, it's sent to human resources. All right. The employee, meanwhile, has to go to human resources to fill out their W-4, their I-9, and their I-9. The STAF is entered at the human resources, and then it shoots over to payroll, where they file it along with the W-4. They also have the task of verifying time slips and generating pay slips. So you see we have 4 different locations where paperwork and people have to process, go back and forth. The new system that we're proposing is to create an office called a Student Employment Office where all the job postings would be posted first of all. So you go there if you're looking for a job. Then if you get a job by going to a workstation, say yes, then you go to this office again. You fill out your staff form, you fill out your I-9, you fill out your W-4. They're all kept in one place there. So if there's a mistake somewhere, you just go to your individual file and that's where you fix the problem. The time slips from the workstation are sent over to the SEO where they collect, verify, and then file them. Then they are sent over to payroll. Payroll has to process them due to state regulations. So they input the time slips and generate the pay slips. If there's a mistake, it goes back to here and they can sort it out. It's a much simpler plan than what we do now. The union feels that with the school growing, with the population of students and student workers growing, that it's time that we take a proactive step to solving this problem. We feel right now all the things that have been proposed to us to solve these problems have been patchwork ideas and not really effective in the long run. This will prove to be cost effective, more efficient, and it will address the other problems that seem to be on the horizon with student employment. Thank you.
I'd like to open it up to the administration for responses to the union's proposal. You may take up to 8 minutes with your response.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm Art Costantino. I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs. And for the last year or so, I've been involved in discussions about the bi-monthly paycheck and other issues affecting student employees. I want to make a couple observations about the process for, I think, continuing this discussion. My hope is that this will be a dialogue, and in fact, our hope for this meeting was that we would present some information. It's my impression that that an informed dialogue that would speak to issues like the actual costs associated with implementing this proposal, as well as some assessment work that has been done about how many students are actually paid on what particular schedules, might be part of what would be helpful in terms of informing this discussion. Our past discussions, I think, have at least included some opportunity for give and take. And I am concerned that there may be a lot of folks here who, like myself, when I first heard about this issue, felt like, yeah, bi-monthly paychecks, that makes sense, but didn't understand perhaps all of the information I think would be there to make an informed discussion. So I hope that we can, at some point, have that kind of process. And I don't think that this agenda in this format, which we were just shown, really gives us a chance to do that. The second observation I would like to make about this has to do with frameworks, and I think this will continue to play out as our discussions continue. It seems to me that one of the things that has perhaps prevented the kind of communication that would be helpful in resolving this and perhaps other issues around student employment has to do with, I think, the different ways in which various individuals view student employment. And there are at least, it seems to me, 2 frameworks that are operating that I think cause some of this difficulty. I think there's a framework that says student employees should be treated exactly like other employees. They're paid, and that framework would argue for the exact same treatment. And certainly that's an understandable framework. The other framework suggests that a student's primary purpose here is to be a student, and that money that students bring, or the whole financial aid process or so on, needs to be understood with that as a context. So, I mean, what are the implications of these perhaps different kind of frameworks? For instance, when a student comes to me in our office and says, I can't, I can't work these hours because my courses occur during that time frame. There's absolutely no question in our minds that given the primacy of the student as a learner, we say, fine. The work in our office is seen as a supplement to being a student. If, however, an employee in the college wants to take time off to further their education, the primacy is given to their role as a full-time employee. And so, for instance, the solutions that follow, and I don't dismiss for one moment that there is a problem. There may be a problem with the gap between when students are hired and when they're first paid. And as I say, we had a little more information about exactly how many students that affects. But when we think about that kind of a problem, we're trying to approach it within that context of thinking about students as being students first. And from that kind of context, emergency loans, for instance, have been developed as a way of providing money on a short term to students who have some short-term needs. The financial aid office is in some ways set up to deal with that kind of a reality. Emergency loans, for instance, don't exist for full-time employees. They're two separate systems, and the language and thinking associated with one system may not apply to the other. And I just provide that as a framework for our future discussions. That doesn't mean that people within each of those frameworks shouldn't be treated fairly and equitably, but I think there's certain implications that unfold from those differences. So I've said a few things about things, and I do want to give, with only 3 minutes remaining, I do want to give an opportunity for anyone else here to speak.
Hi, I'm Nancy Mckinney. I'm here for Ruta Fanning today because she needed to be in Seattle for some legislative work. And my comment is, I think you've done a really good job in the beginning of your analysis here about the process. But from my look at it, there's some pieces missing and some costs that aren't here yet. And so I, like Art, hope that we can have further dialogue about the whole process and flesh out everything that's involved.
I might say, for instance, that from a student point of view, this notion of how much the system would actually cost is not irrelevant. Because ultimately all costs, including things that might be applied to implementing a system like this, ultimately are paid for in one way or the other by students. So I think you need to have some information about those kinds of issues before any final decisions are made. But as I said, we're very interested in continuing the discussions and the dialogue.
There still is 2 minutes left to this section, and I'd like for the administration to identify exactly what pieces are missing. You mentioned that there were some pieces missing.
Well, at first blush, you focused in on the payroll office portion of this, and I know that there's other areas on campus that deal with the paperwork and everything. And there's other issues such as verifying hours and people who supervise student employees. So there's some effect there by changing the process, as well as the additional processing costs from our system. We pay us to have our payroll processed, and so there's costs associated with increasing the number of checks we're going to have produced. And then there's HRS issues, I'm sure, as well as financial aid issues. I'm sorry, Human Resource Services.
Yeah, as an example, the proposal that you have suggested the cost of this office would be between $40,000 and $50,000. Actually, we would be happy to share with you information that suggests the cost of just that part would be about twice that. And that raises questions about if that, whether that's really how we want to spend our money in support of student employment issues, with a whole range of student employment issues, which I think cry out for some attention. The other information that we were going to present was information about just how many students actually have to wait to how long for checks, which I think is another important piece of information. And I wish I had time to talk more directly with the students who have presented their particular stories, because I think they're compelling. But as is often the case when you deal with individual situations, there's a series of questions about the current system. Did you make use of the current options available in financial aid? And I think some of that discussion is important too, because before we institute a system, especially an expensive system, I think we have to understand the options that already exist.
All right, the next piece of our agenda is to have the panel respond to the administrator's concerns. I have identified some of the major concerns that I see the administration has presented to us. That is the costs of implementing this new system. The two different frameworks we can view student work as either students are here to be students and work is secondary, and also the effect that it would have on other areas on campus. To address the costs that this system would imply, I refer that to Steve and Evelyn to answer those questions.
I'd just like to say first off that this system right now exists almost carbon copy at Eastern Washington University, and that's where we got the idea from. So they are paying for it there, and they're finding a way to do it somehow. As far as the cost, I like to address the issue of what this will save the college in the long run. Of course, there are initial fees it's going to take to get this started, and we feel that that's a price to pay to take a proactive step towards solving these problems. But it's not as clear that this will save work on those offices that you mentioned, Nancy. It will actually decrease the amount of paperwork they have to file, they have to process. Also, because of that, we feel they probably will not need the amount of hours they spend right now in their office. So that's budget money right there that we feel could be transferred. We're no geniuses with budgets. We don't know how that works. As far as we're concerned, we have taken many steps here towards the solution. Now it's kind of your turn, we think, to take the steps to make this work. Obviously, there's a consensus in the room that it needs to be done.
I just wanted to check with Abby, the facilitator, and make sure that that question was answered. I guess there was a question answered as to where should this money come from, and I think Steve did a good job of saying that we are not the budgeters of the college and that is not our trained positions. Was there anything else that you wanted to clarify on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's why we want to be paid twice a month.
Respect student workers!
To address the differing views we can look upon student workers as having is whether student work is a student's secondary concern and students are here to be students first, and thus we need to treat student workers different than full-time employees. I refer to Becca.
Thanks. Well, I just want to refer back to the testimonies and to the 100 testimonies that we gave the administration last year, which pointed out that being paid once a month, and not only the beginning of the year is a big hardship, but that's, as we stated in our opening statement, that's not where it ends. It's being paid once a month is a hardship, and it does affect our academics. So as far as there being a two-tier system of employees for Evergreen State College, that may be the case, but to say that this isn't a hardship, or that the administration or that the workstations bend to our needs, that needs to follow through with the fact that being paid once a month is hurting. We're not able to buy books. We're having to worry about our deposits. As Erica said, we're having to worry about having late credit ratings. We're having to use credit cards, and that is severely affecting. And as far as whether or not Art, As far as whether or not this actually is affecting people, I think that the 300, 400 people here in this room is a testament to that, the fact that it does. This is a time when lots of people have to work. This is a time when there's a CISPIS rally. This is a time when everybody has things to be at, and everybody decided to be here to put a message across, and that message across is that we all need to be paid twice a month. So whereas, of course, there's holes, thank you. Of course, there's holes in this statement. We're not budgeters. We're students. We're working full time. We're going to school full time. We're working a lot of hours, and we're putting together this proposal. I think that, as Steve pointed out very eloquently, it's the administration's job to take the torch at this point. We have some statements that we'd like you to sign. We'd like you to sign a statement that says we're going to get bi-monthly paychecks by the beginning of spring quarter. We realize that that's going to mean action soon, but we hope that this meeting is going to start that action, and we're willing to help you in implementing that.
Will the administrators sign such a statement?
Well, I'm one administrator, and I won't at this time. I'd be happy to explain why.
Yeah.
My sense from the 7 or 8 years at Evergreen is that we don't make decisions in the context of rallies or those kind of events. We have reasoned, lengthy dialogue, especially on tough issues around which there's complex information. And this happens to be one of those issues. I know that people are presenting this as a fairly simple situation. I think it is more complex. And it seems to me that the very nature of Evergreen has to do with informed dialogue. And so when that dialogue occurs, then I might be more comfortable with the request that I'm being presented with right now. But I think it's a bit unfair.
With all due respect, I feel that we've entered into dialogue with you for a year and a quarter now. And I think that the lengthy part of your statement is what concerns me most. I feel that putting this up to too much more dialogue without some kind of commitment after this meeting will really could effectively dilute the power and the energy that we have in this room right now, and the huge message that we're sending that this needs to happen. We all feel that this needs to happen. And if Evergreen is really about collaboration and is really about, as the statement says, about serving the needs of the students, then we're saying 400 people strong that this needs to be served right now.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Welch, and I'm new to the Evergreen State. And the reason I agreed to be here is I thought we were going to be involved in an honest and open dialogue. I came to offer my service as somebody who is not familiar with this issue, who comes with new eyes, to see if we could actually move this somewhere. And it's a little uncomfortable to understand or to feel like I've been brought into a situation where there are no options and that there has not been an honest effort to listen to some of the things that we may have to say. What I would actually like to propose, if we're interested in moving this and actually trying to find some resolutions and some alternatives, is that we do have some continued conversations so that everyone's facts can be put on the table, so that we can make a decision that agrees with the students and also meets the needs of the institution. Because we're all here together, we're all in this community together, and my hope in coming to Evergreen, when I heard about the way the system worked, was that it was a collaborative institution where a lot of dialogue took place, where people sought to understand one another before action was taken. And right at this moment, I don't feel like that's happening. Even saying that, I am still willing, with my newness and my new eyes to the institution, to lead any or be involved in any kind of discussions that would move us ahead to some kind of resolution of this.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. If I could just respond to what you just said, I wanted to reiterate one thing that Becca said a moment ago, and that is that we engaged in some of those dialogues last year. We engaged in private dialogues in meeting rooms in the library building with all of us sitting at a round table and talking, and we didn't get very far. We talked about making a commitment. We talked about asking administrators to make a commitment that this bi-monthly paycheck issue was an issue that needed to be worked on. Last time I checked, that commitment was not able to be even made, that this issue was important to be worked on. I think that this is a step that we've come to because of that dialogue that did not happen when we initially took that step. And I'm also very interested in continuing this process in a proactive manner. I would just like to point out a little bit of the history that has brought us to this point.
So we have another statement that we would like you to sign that says that you agree that this is a problem that we need to change, and that you agree to submit a proposal outlining a viable timeline that you see fit to us, the Union of Student Workers, by 12 o'clock noon on Monday, December 7th, which leaves you a week and a half business days to do that. Will you sign that? I'll read it. November 18th, 1998, we, the administration of Evergreen State College, in recognizing the respect that student workers of this campus deserve, agree to submit a proposal outlining a viable timeline with which we will implement a twice-a-month paycheck schedule. This proposal will be submitted to the Union of Student Workers by noon on Monday, December 7th, 1998. There's even a little spot for your name, Art.
Thank you. Well, understand that I'm only one person in the administration, but again, the language in here suggests that we have concluded to move in the direction of bi-monthly paycheck. And again, I want to go back to saying that this is a possibility, but I am not going to right now commit to that without further discussion and dialogue. I want to make one other comment about the assertion that we discussed this at length last year. I don't think that's a fair characterization. To my memory, we had one and maybe two meetings, and those meetings did not include many of the people who are in this room, some of whom may be interested in hearing the information and the different sides of the story that exist and were discussed then. So I think out of respect for people who are not informed on this issue, out of respect for the kind of process that Evergreen, I think, affirms and stands for, I cannot agree to sign that.
No. I basically see that the agenda has come to a close. I think that the administration, the panel, we thank them that they showed up. Steve Hughes is going to talk to the student workers for a few minutes about what we're going to do now, which I think is important because it's pretty unclear. But I thank you all for coming, and I will be leaving with the administration at this point.
Please stay. If everyone could please stay for just 1 minute, pretty please, that would be really great.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This was excellent. We have a few things that we want to do real quick before everybody takes off. Obviously, there's some opinions here that need to be talked about. We are, first of all, going to be debriefing, discussing as much in depth as we want to all these issues that just came up on the third floor of the CAB and the student activities area. We need to talk about these things, obviously. What we want to do is we want to leave as a group as much as possible. I understand some people have to get out of here quickly, but if we could leave and assemble in Red Square together, that would be
just for a minute.
Just for 1 minute. It's just a sign of what we are as a group. Obviously, they're talking about the dialogues that we had with them before and you not being present. And I personally kind of resent the fact that they expect you to be informed on these issues and at the same time wanting us to meet with them in controlled situations. We can't do both things at once. This was an opportunity for us as student workers to show who we are, to show the administrators that we have a voice on this school. And because of that, now I think it would be best if we just get out of here together, meeting in Red Square, and then anybody that can come up to the third floor of the CAP. Thanks a lot.